By the middle of the 1700s, 13 colonies that made up part of England's empire in the New World were finding it difficult to be ruled by a king 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. They were tired of the taxes imposed upon them, but independence was a gradual and painful process. The colonies could not forget that they were British citizens and that they owed allegiance to King George III. A tea party and a massacre were two events that hurried destiny. Along with general unrest, these events united the colonists. In 1767, a tea company in India, owned by England, was losing money. To save the company, England levied a tax on tea sold in the colonies in 1773. Partly as a joke, Samuel Adams and other Bostonians dressed up as Indians and dumped a cargo of the India Company tea into the Massachusetts Bay. King George III did not think it was funny, nor did he lift the tax on tea. In the Boston harbor, British soldiers were jeered and stoned by colonists who thought the soldiers had been sent to watch them. The soldiers fired into the crowd and killed a few citizens. The colonists exaggerated the number killed and called it a massacre. Virginia took the first step toward independence by voting to set up a committee to represent the colonies. This first Continental Congress met in September of 1774. They drew up a list of grievances against the Crown, which became the first draft of a document that would formally separate the colonies from England. George Washington took command of the Continental Army and began fighting the British in Massachusetts. For the next 8 years, colonists fought fervently in the Revolutionary War. In the meantime, a war of words was being waged in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. On July 2, 1776, the Second Continental Congress presented and debated a second draft of the list of grievances, and John Hancock, the president of the Second Continental Congress, was the first to sign. The document, called the Declaration of Independence, was treasonous against the Crown, and the 56 men who signed it were in danger of being executed. Independence Day is celebrated on July 4 because that is the day when the Continental Congress adopted the final draft of the Declaration of Independence. From July 8th, 1776 until the next month, the document was read publicly and people celebrated whenever they heard it. The next year in Philadelphia, bells rang and ships fired guns, candles and firecrackers were lighted. But the War of Independence dragged on until 1783, and in that year, Independence Day was made an official holiday. 1941 Congress declared 4th of July a federal holiday. John Adams, a lawyer, the first president and second president of the United States, was one of the members of the Second Continental Congress who signed the Declaration of Independence. He wrote to his wife, "I believe that it would be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be celebrated by pomp and parade with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other." John Adams may have predicted the latter Independence Day celebrations, or perhaps he started traditions with his words. Every July 4th, Americans have a holiday from work. Communities have day-long picnics with favorite food like hot dogs, hamburgers, potato salad, baked beans, and all the fixings. The afternoon activities would not be complete without lively music, a friendly baseball game, three-legged races, and a pie-eating or watermelon-eating contest. Some cities have parades with people dressed as the original founding fathers who march in parades to the music of high school bands. At dusk, people in towns and cities gather to watch the fireworks display. Wherever Americans are around the globe, they will get together for a traditional 4th of July celebration.
The whole thing, when it says that the Puritans came over here to escape religious persecution and wanted to come over here to be able to worship God freely or something like that. The God of the Declaration of Independence is is Satan. So that's the whole kicker with that. It says, although the common meaning of paganism seems to imply atheism, a pagan can worship any other god not common to the God of the Torah, the Bible, or the Quran. This also includes those who worship gods before the advent of the Judeo-Christian religions. As Mortimer Adler put it, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Cyril were Western pagans. The Western peoples of pre-Christian antiquity were all pagans in the sense defined. Many remained pagans during the early centuries of the Christian era. And from the 16th century on, the number of pagans living in communities that were predominantly Christian or Muslim had steadily increased. So if we wish to find the origins of a government based on paganism, we must establish two things: the lawful documents, symbols, and mottos of the founding government do not contain any mention of Christian, Muslim, or Jewish religions. The documents, symbols, and mottos of
mottos, isn't it mottos?
Yeah, mottos of the founding government describe pagan deities and concepts. Since the government in question involves the founding of documents and symbols of the United States of America, we must satisfy the above two criteria with the evidence for paganism and lack of evidence for Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. This becomes ever more interesting in light of the recent religious right movement in their attempt to convince citizens that the American government derived from Christian principles. The inspiration for creating this article came from deceptive claims by right-wing Christians about Moses and the Ten Commandments depicted on the Supreme Court building and other state courthouses. This article shows their error by examining the very documents establishing the United States of America, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and the symbols and mottos used by early Americans. In every case, paganism prevails and Christianity does not. In fact, paganism reveals itself so predominantly that it should give the reader pause to consider the power of Christian propaganda to deceive and disguise these obvious facts for so long.